Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Andy's Little Homestead. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I know I did. I'm still full. I didn't really have to have breakfast, but I did need coffee. Unfortunately, my water tank froze last night, so I had to buy some from the clown. Not too happy about that. Either way, I've got a fun project for us today. It's actually the second half of the snow plow mount. We've got a little bit of electrical, some hydraulic work, and just all around backwoods engineering type stuff. So let's get started. Now, when the plow is mounted to the truck, unfortunately, it covers the headlights. So we have to work around that by making a bracket with new headlights. I picked up these. These are just trailer side marker lights. You can get them for like $5-6, Tractor Supply. And the light bar. The light bar is pretty nifty. It has 3 modes. X-ray, seizures, and yellow. I could have gone with something from a junkyard. In this case, I went with new. I think that it's important to be able to see, so bright is good. That being said, I'm not a 17-year-old kid rolling around in a Z71 that Daddy bought me, so I'm not running it in X-ray mode all the time. Everybody pissed me off. Most of the time, you're getting yellow. Anyway, the wiring on this was pretty simple. I've got it wired directly into the existing headlights. So, black wire to ground, red wire, ran it behind the grill, and a spliced butt connector so I can disconnect it when I need to when I'm done for the season. The turn signals I don't have wired up yet, but they're basically following the same path wired into their respective sides. The other thing with these is that the ground wire, it doesn't have one, it just grounds through the mounting screw. We just used a couple self-tappers to go into this. The frame was courtesy of my boss man. Those are actually aluminum snow rails for a standing seam roof, but it's cheaper than buying angle iron. So let's move on to the hydraulics. I love hydraulic systems as a whole because they're very, very versatile. Basically, you just need something that spins the pump and you can do damn near anything. It's essentially a frictionless system. There's no power loss as the fluid is pushed through the lines. It's based on the premise that fluid cannot compress. So whenever that fluid is being pumped through the lines, as long as there's no air, it's gonna push the same distance on the other end that is coming off from the pump side. This is where our AC compressor would be, if we had one. We don't. So we've got to make a bracket. It's going to bolt into here and here. It's going to mount the pump so that that pulley is in line with those other ones. We're going to get a longer belt to wrap around all of it, and it'll be spinning full time. Having the hydraulic pump run full time is going to rob a little bit of power from the engine. It's not like it came with a lot in the first place. It's geared like a tractor, so it'll still work. When I bought the plow, this was the bracket that came with it, and I've got no way to fit it in. There's a random chain welded to it. I don't know why. But the convenient thing is we can use this for a template because this hole and this hole are the same distance apart as this bolt and the bolt we're going to put in there. You don't always get lucky, but every now and again, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. It's kind of hard to see, but it's pencil on gray steel. Anyway, we've got our holes marked. The other thing that I'm going to do is one of these holes is actually going to be a slot going up to another hole at the top, because I'm going to need to loosen the belt to install it. So what I'm going to have to do is measure it with it as loose as it can go. I'm going to get a belt that size, and then I'll be able to pull up on it to add tension to it, make sure everything stays spinning like it's supposed to. Pro tip, get more angle iron than you need. That way when you mess it up, you can just do it again. So if you have the option, if you happen to have one, it's good. You're drilling out metal, start with a center punch. It'll give you a nice, good spot to get the drill started. That way the bit doesn't try and walk off on you. So now I'm going to take my angle grinder and I'm going to cut from there to there so that I've got a slot that it can slide in. And now we're just going to cut it to length. It fits. We've got the one side down there on the bolt. That slot lines up with that bolt hole, so we'll be able to add tension after we put the belt on. So we've got the bottom nut on. We're going to find a bolt for that. I never throw out hardware because you can always find somewhere that it needs to go. In this case, I already did find one. If you're going to take on a lot of these backwoods engineering type projects, it's probably a good idea to just have spare hardware. So all these, I believe I got from Harbor Freight. You can get multi-packs of whatever from Tractor Supply. In this case, I've got the bolt. I need a lock washer. And look, I have 250 washers to choose from. Found one. And then I take my pump and I line it up so that it's in line with that other pulley coming off the power steering pump. Held it in place and I marked where my holes are going to go. So now our pump is installed. Again, I've just got these bolts right here hand tightened. That way I can slide it back and forth. I'm going to do that and then bolt it down or tighten everything down. I want to make sure that I keep this pulley completely aligned with the one underneath it. And then from there, I can adjust the tension off of that slot that I cut up top. Now the pump's on. It's lined up with it in the position all the way down, basically the most loosened position. I took a piece of string, I wrapped it around, and I tied a knot in the end at the exact length, and we'll just buy a 1/2-inch V-belt that's that long. I couldn't find my tape measure, which is really embarrassing for somebody who does construction for a living, but I don't know where it landed. Anyway, we'll buy a belt that size. So now the belt's on, pump's on. Unfortunately, I had to remove all of the other belts to get to it, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Either way, it's on, it works. Obviously, since this has the pump running full time, you want to make sure that you have hydraulic fluid in it. These plows have their own specific hydraulic fluid that can go down to like -50 or some ridiculous number that we won't even see here. For the time being, just because I don't know about the system, I don't know if it leaks or what I'm going to find, just automatic transmission fluid. Most of the plow manufacturers have their own specifications for what works. For this one, just the Dexron, Dex, whatever kind of ATF is what works for it. Once I get done finding, sealing up any kind of leaks, things like that, then I'll put the right stuff in there. As you can see, I ended up with an absolute spaghetti mess of the control cables and the hydraulic lines. This was the valve for running the side-to-side movement on the plow. For right now, I just took it off because it's fixing to snow tomorrow. After I get everything set up, it works up and down, and I just manually move it, put the linchpin in. Then from there I can mess with the hydraulics for the side-to-side movement. So after pulling the second valve, I ran into another problem. The control cables that came with the plow were too short for my mounting location, and my mounting location is pretty well determined by the hydraulic line, so I can't really move that, and I don't have too many options here other than to come up with something different. So I bought another longer cable. This one actually has a twist lock, so I'll be able to lock it into the up position and not drop the plow while I'm going 55 down the highway. She doesn't like to do 60. I took the plate off the bottom of it, and we'll just put it right back there where it was. Drilled the hole for this off to the side, and that way I am able to put a second one in to control side to side whenever I get to that point. We've got everything tightened up, and now we're going to fish the control cable through this fun little hole that we drilled in the floor. Hit the transmission. And now we've got it fished up through. I think what we're going to do is shorten it up a little bit, and then we'll make our loops to attach onto our valve control. Since this is a universal cable, it doesn't have any kind of fitting on the end. We're going to use these furls to basically make a loop with it as tight as possible, and it's going to go around that. That way, when we pull on it, it's going to be lifting the plow up. We can lock it in place if we need to, and then we push, which is very easy. It just lets out hydraulic fluid, which allows the plow to drop. That thing that I just said about it being real easy to push it forward and let the pressure out, I was wrong. With the system under pressure, I found out that the cable wasn't stiff enough to actually push it, so I just installed a little return spring so it will allow it to open the valve back up when I need to. Now I got to mount the reservoir tank. I had it like this just temporarily, but I'm not going to leave it that way. Took a hose clamp, I screwed it in 2 spots over there and clamped it down. So she's good. Unfortunately, I don't have enough snow to actually do any plowing, but we can test the system out. Looks like she got excited there. Is that a snow plow on the front of your truck, or are you just happy to see me? As I told y'all before, I've got my counterweight set up in the back of the truck. All it is just one of those same IBC totes that I use for the water tank. Picked them up for real cheap. I cut it off right there, and then I cut the top off of it, filled it up with sand, and put the top back on. That left me with this little guy. I've got plans for it later. So just a couple final thoughts on this one. First, I would have loved to demonstrate actually plowing with it. I have hooked it up and it does work. I just haven't had the snow to do it, and I can't control the weather. If I could control the weather, well, then I'd have it snow a whole bunch. So instead of living in a camper, I can live in a mansion full of money. Have a big old vault full of gold like Scrooge McDuck. I don't have that. Anyway, I also want to thank you guys. I've gotten a tremendous amount of support. I don't know where it was shared or what, but my last video with the plow had something like 150,000 people reached. That's incredible. I had no idea that so many people were interested in what I had going on. This is kind of just a fun project for me, but for all the support, thank you guys so much. For the people who comment and give alternatives or ways that have worked for them, I love it. Keep it coming. That's great. For the people who comment, and I'm talking like 2% here that want to comment and be all ugly about it, there's really no need to be rude. I understand that I'm not an expert in everything that I've got going. I would tell you to go ahead and make your own Facebook page. Sit down, edit, make the videos, have people enjoy them and actually be funny. But you won't do that because you're not very funny. You've probably got a sad little life if you feel the need to be mean to a stranger for no reason. You probably let the AutoZone guy install your wiper blades. I bet you tip 10% at restaurants. Women don't find you attractive or interesting. You're just going to sit there like the spineless keyboard warrior you are, wishing you were a man, while I'm out here actually doing the stuff. So I feel bad for you. Anyway, as always, thank you guys so much. I love you. Thank you for the support. Have a great day. God bless.